There are many names throughout history that invoke horror when spoken about, but one that sticks out in the minds of many is one Vlad Dracul III, or more commonly known as Vlad the Impaler. Such a morbid nickname alone is enough to warrant some macabre thoughts about this figure, especially when you consider that the nickname was indeed a testament to how Vlad would deal with his enemies, by literally impaling them upon spikes. In fact, one story tells us that Vlad had impaled so many of his victims that he was able to intimidate an opposing army by arranging the impaled bodies into a forest of corpses. Furthermore, as his name indicates, he would become inspiration for Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula, the legendary vampire. This wasn't just fitting for the fact that their names were similar, however, for there exist accounts that much like his fictional counterpart, Vlad had a taste for blood himself, something he would indulge in with fine dinners amongst his recently slain victims. But how much of this was true, and where do we draw the line between Vlad Dracul III and Bram Stoker's Dracula? In this series, we aim to answer both of these questions. But perhaps more importantly, we'll be diving into the mindset and the rich history that shaped the most compelling figure for the Europeans, and the national hero for Romania. One of the most common aspects of Vlad that many people focus on is his name, and the connection it has with the legendary vampire. Well, it would appear that the name originated with Vlad's father, Vlad Dracul, or Vlad the Dragon, a sobriquet his father had earned after becoming a member of the Order of the Dragon, a league that was dedicated to opposing the expansion of the Ottoman Empire and to defend the Hungarian monarchy from both foreign and domestic threats. It was the Holy Roman Emperor, Sigismund of Luxembourg, and also the King of Hungary, who created the Dragon Order to repel the Turks, and it was he who inducted Vlad and promoted him therein as a well-respected member. As a result of this, Vlad Dracul would become the ruler of the southern side of modern Romania, known as Wallachia, and would be considered a very well-respected and influential man, something that was long cultivated during his time in the Dragon Order. The name Dracul was passed down to his sons Vlad and Radu, whereby variations of the spelling would come to exist through diplomatic reports and popular stories, those that refer to him as Dracula. In fact, Vlad himself was known to have signed letters as Dragulia or Draculia in the later 15th century, though the exact reason for this is unknown. One idea comes from the Slavonic language, where Dracula meant the son of Dracul, or the son of the dragon, a perfect fit for Vlad, who descended from a celebrated man of the Dragon Order. Interestingly, in modern Romanian, the term Dracul has since come to mean the devil, something that would certainly come to contribute to Vlad's frightful reputation. Today though, he's better known as Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Dracul. This sobriquet, of course, associated with the mass impalements that he was said to deliver upon his enemies. Amongst some 16th century writers, Vlad would become to be known as Kazikli Voivoda, the Impaler Lord. In the early days, Vlad's father, Vlad Dracul II, had been busy making a name for himself. The Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund and the Order of the Dragon had honoured Vlad with the moniker of Dracul, and because of his influence, he was able to seize Wallachia in 1436 with Hungarian support after the death of his half-brother Alexander I of Aldea. He became the voivode, a term given to the ruler of Wallachia at the time. It was an extremely turbulent time too, where the land of modern-day Romania was split into three sections: Transylvania, Moldavia, and the southern section of Wallachia. Wallachia was one of the most important parts of the country, for it was the first line of defense against the Ottoman invasion. Naturally, this made it a violent melting pot of political interest, so violent in fact that leadership of the region changed 18 times during the 15th century. Vlad Dracul would have three legitimate sons: Mircea II, Vlad III, and Radu the Handsome. He would settle in Transylvania in 1429, which some have speculated was where Vlad III was born, and that they lived in a 3-story stone house between the years of 1431 and 1435, these being the years before Vlad Dracul seized Wallachia in 1436. The identity of Vlad III's mother, however, is up for some debate, with some speculating that Vlad's mother was the daughter of Alexander I of Moldavia, or an unknown woman who Vlad Dracul was previously married to. When the voivode of Wallachia in Alexander I of Aldea died, Vlad Dracul took his moment to strike, and with the backing of the Holy Roman Emperor and the Hungarian military, he was able to establish himself as the new voivode of Wallachia. What was dynamically different about Vlad Dracul's rule compared to his predecessor was that he did not pay homage to Murad II, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. It's understood that at the time, the Ottoman sphere of influence was so large that surrounding regions, or regions that were controlled by the Turks, would be required to pay tributes to the Sultan. The nature of the tributes differed from region to region, but for the most part, these came in the form of gifts, usually those of an economic gesture, those which became an increasingly heavier burden over the years. In fact, one stipulation from the Ottomans in some regions was that they would be required to offer something of a blood sacrifice, the donation of boys under the age of 12, of whom they would train in the Ottoman Empire as future soldiers. It was taxing tributes such as these which saw rulers eventually shy away from them and refuse them altogether. Alexander I of Aldea had abided by such rules and paid the Sultan as his predecessors had done, but Vlad Dracul had the backing of the Hungarian military, given his connection to the Dragon Order and the Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund, who was also the King of Hungary. All parties detested the Turks and were dedicated to overcoming them. Due to this, Vlad Dracul, as the voivode of Wallachia, denied the Sultan and refused to pay him anything. But after Sigismund of Luxembourg died in 1437, Hungary's position was weakened, and thus the hold that Vlad Dracul had over Wallachia was suddenly compromised. Due to this, he was no longer in a position where he could shun the Sultan, and so, with much reluctance, he proceeded to pay the tribute, which would also see him participate in the Ottoman invasion of Transylvania. But the voivode of Transylvania, one John Hunyadi, came to Wallachia in an effort to sway Vlad from his newfound obligation to the Sultan, and to instead join him in a crusade against the Ottomans. Hunyadi's defense against the Ottomans in Transylvania was successful, but it would see Vlad Dracul come under some heavy speculation from the Sultan, who would proceed to accuse him of treachery. Murad II would summon Vlad to demonstrate his loyalty to the Ottomans in person, but before departing, he elected his eldest son Mircea II as the ruler of Wallachia, almost like he was preempting that something foul was about to happen. And he was right. As soon as he arrived before the Sultan, he was captured and imprisoned. During this time, John Hunyadi feared that Vlad Dracul was striking up a deal with the Ottomans, and so with this in mind, he struck at Wallachia and drove Mircea II out of the throne and into hiding. There he was able to establish control over Wallachia and made Vlad's cousin Borisov II the new voivode. Vlad was able to placate the Sultan and convince him, for the most part, that he was loyal and had no intention to go against the Ottomans. Seemingly convinced by his argument, Mehmed II allowed Vlad to leave, but on the condition that he left behind his two young sons, Vlad and Radu, as hostages. In the years that followed, Vlad Dracul was restored in Wallachia with Ottoman support, though he proceeded to remain neutral in the conflict between Transylvania's John Hunyadi and the Ottomans that took place between 1443 and 1444. It would appear that he was complicit in sending meagre forces to support Hunyadi's crusade against the Ottomans, and even captured an important Ottoman fortress at Giurgiu in 1445. With these actions, Vlad Dracul was creeping dangerously close to breaking the promises he had made with the Sultan. In this effort to remain neutral and please both sides of the crusade, Vlad Dracul was leaving his young sons in a precarious position. Naturally, it was only so long before the Ottomans would learn that Vlad Dracul had been playing both sides. Ironically, one idea is that the Ottomans had only come to learn of Vlad's antics because his eldest son Mircea II had utilised cannons in a skirmish against the Ottomans, the first time such weaponry had been used in Romanian history. It is believed that Vlad Dracul would come to view his hostage sons as unfortunate collateral damage, noble sacrifices if you will, for the sake of Christian peace. But surprisingly, the Ottomans did not kill Vlad's sons as was to be expected. Peace was eventually found between Vlad and the Sultan in 1446, but this came at the cost of the already tense relationship between the Wallachians and the Transylvanians. Hunyadi was now the one to feel the betrayal of Vlad Dracul in his reconciliation with the Sultan, and as a result, he invaded Wallachia and forced Vlad to flee to Targoviste. Mircea II was seized and tortured with a red-hot poker before being buried alive. Vlad Dracul, on the other hand, fled. But before the end of the night, Hunyadi's forces caught up to him, and he was assassinated. In the fallout of the Transylvanian assault, Hunyadi made Vladislav II, who was a son of Vlad Dracul's cousin, the new voivode of Wallachia. Before his assassination though, Vlad Dracul's hostage sons, Vlad III and Radu the Handsome, would be living quite extraordinary lives of their own. Despite being very young in age, it is believed that they were both raised with the expectation of greatness, and this was before they'd been taken by the Sultan. Back home, they would have been taught the fundamentals of royalty, including a high level of education, an idea of politics, proper decorum, and of course the idea that they were cut from a different cloth in comparison to other boys. Education appeared to be a very important factor for the young boys, and when they weren't learning, they were likely training, a physical and mental preparation for the likely conflicts they would face as the potential voivodes of a turbulent Wallachia. Beyond this, Catholicism would also be a core value of their upbringing, and much of their time would be spent at church, understanding religion. Of course, this would all come to an abrupt end when Vlad and his brother Radu were taken hostage by the Sultan, and suddenly the brothers would find themselves in this strange new world of the Ottoman Empire. They were strangers to say the least, especially in an environment without their parents, without their peers, and without anyone who even spoke their language. In a sense, Vlad, who was only 11 years old, and Radu, who was only 7 years old, were entirely alone. Join me next time for part 2 of this series on Vlad the Impaler, where we'll continue to explore the younger years of Vlad and see how much of his childhood experiences shaped the man he would become. As always guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode on Vlad the Impaler, then be sure to give it a like and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. Until next time.